She was hired as a caregiver. Her patient was the billionaire who left her pregnant. The man who left me pregnant is paying me by the hour to keep him alive. 12 years ago, he chose his stock price over our baby now. A stroke has put his billionaire body in my hands, and if I walk away, he may never get back up. The worst part isn't that he doesn't recognize me at first, it's that when he finally does, he realizes my 12-year-old daughter has his eyes. Before this night is over, he'll admit exactly why he left us, and my child will ask him the one question no man like him is ever ready to hear. If you've ever raised a child on your own, while the world praised the man who disappeared, you're going to feel every word of what happens next. Because this time, I'm not just here to save his life, I'm here to decide whether he deserves to be in ours. By the time the folder slid across the cheap laminate desk, Jessica's hands were already tired. End-of-month bills, Daisy's school trip form, the extra shift she'd picked up at the rehab center. All of it had stacked on her shoulders the way it always did, quiet, heavy, uncomplaining, while the staffing agency's fluorescent lights hummed above her like they were irritated to still be on. "Jessica, I think this one might be a good fit for you," Amanda said, nudging the manila folder closer. The thin cardboard edge scraped softly against the desk. Jessica glanced down, expecting another anonymous patient. Another elderly stroke survivor with a complicated medication chart and a lonely house that would start to feel familiar right when the assignment ended. Instead, she saw a name that split her life into before and after all over again: David Campbell. For half a second, the letters blurred, like the universe was offering her one last chance not to recognize them. Then her pulse roared in her ears, and there was no escape. This wasn't fate. This was cruelty with good penmanship. Amanda kept talking, unaware that 12 years were collapsing in Jessica's chest. "He's high profile," she said. "Billionaire tech founder, you've probably seen him on TV. Car accident a while back, then a stroke. He's home now, needs full-time support. We need someone competent, calm, and discreet. That's you. Competent, calm, discreet." 3 words Jessica had built a whole life around. Amanda flipped a page. The pay is excellent. Live-in option if needed. Stabilizing long-term. Especially with a daughter in middle school, I imagine that matters. There it was. The word that anchored her every time she felt herself slipping. Daughter. Daisy. 12 years old. Too tall for her age. Too smart for her own peace. Asking questions Jessica could no longer dodge with jokes and half-answers. "Why don't I have a dad? Why do you turn off the TV whenever David Campbell comes on? Why do you look sad when everyone else calls him a hero?" "Jessica?" Amanda's voice cut through the fog. "You okay?" Her fingers were clamped so tightly around the folder that the cardboard dug into her palms. Who referred him?" Jessica asked, stalling. "To the agency, I mean. His legal team," Amanda said. "The accident shook everything up. He doesn't trust many people. We've already lost 2 caregivers. He can be difficult, but if you can handle him, this job could change things for you." Change things. They always said that right before sliding another impossible choice across her path. "I need to know you're comfortable with high-stakes clients," Amanda added. "Discretion is essential." He doesn't like strangers. Neither do I, Jessica thought. Especially not the ones I used to love. Aloud, she said, "How long is the assignment?" "Minimum 3 months," Amanda said. "Likely longer. They're talking about ongoing support. Physically, he's stable. Functionally, he's struggling. Mentally, let's just say he doesn't handle weakness well, his or anyone else's." Jessica let that sit. She could say no. She could walk away, keep patching life together with double shifts, hand-me-down uniforms, and second-hand textbooks. Or she could walk straight into the lion's den, into his house, into his weakness, into the chapter of her life he thought he'd closed with a wire transfer in silence. "Can you start this week?" Amanda asked. Jessica heard Daisy in her head. "Mom, why don't I have a dad? Did he ever want us?" "Yes," she said. "I can start immediately." Amanda smiled, relieved. "Wonderful," she said. "I'll email the details. You'll be his primary caregiver. There's household staff, housekeeper, cook, security, but medically, you're in charge." Medically, he's mine, Jessica thought. The irony almost made her laugh. Outside, the late afternoon sun turned her aging sedan into a toaster. The air conditioner wheezed in protest when she cranked it up, but it tried like everything in her life, doing its best with what it had. At a red light, her phone buzzed. "Mom, can we have pancakes for dinner?" "Please say yes." Even now, even with his name burning holes through the folder beside her, she smiled. Yes. Long shift tomorrow. We'll talk tonight, she typed. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Okay, love you. She stared at that screen longer than she needed to. Love you too. Always, she replied. He had never seen Daisy's face. Never heard her laugh. Never watched her wobble through first steps on a sticky rental apartment floor. He'd built an empire instead. And now he needed someone to help him stand. As the car rolled through neighborhoods that grew richer and quieter with each mile, Jessica felt that familiar ache, the sense that life had handed her a script she hadn't auditioned for. If you've ever felt like you were cast in a supporting role in someone else's story, you know that ache. If you're still here listening, you might want to stay with Jessica, subscribe, and keep walking with her, because this isn't where her story ends, it's where it finally starts to turn. The estate gates were taller than anything she'd ever walked through. Black iron, stone pillars. A camera that followed her car with an indifferent mechanical whir. She buzzed in. Name? A voice crackled. Jessica Owen, new caregiver. The gates opened with the slow arrogance of money. The driveway curved through manicured grounds that looked like they'd been curated for a magazine spread. Trees spaced like they were on payroll, flower beds that had never met a weed, grass too perfect to be entirely real. The house rose up a head glass and stone in sharp lines. Less a home, more a statement. She parked behind a gleaming car that cost more than every car she'd ever owned combined. Her sedan clicked as it cooled, sounding embarrassed. The front door opened before she could knock. Ms. Owen, a woman asked. Late 50s, silver threaded through dark hair, posture that said she kept everything running without needing applause. Yes, Jessica is fine. I'm Ellis. House manager, the woman said. He's waiting. Waiting. That was new. Inside, the silence of wealth pressed against her ears. Expensive art on the walls. Thick rugs that swallowed footsteps. Air conditioned to the exact temperature where you stopped noticing it. He wasn't always like this, Ellis said as they walked. The accident changed him. The stroke changed him more. Physically, Jessica asked, slipping into professional mode like a familiar uniform. And otherwise, Ellis said, he doesn't like needing help, especially from anyone who reminds him he's human. They reached the elevator, rode up. At the end of the hall, Ellis paused at a pair of double doors. Before we go in, she said, I should warn you. He's fired 2 caregivers for doing their jobs too well. How's that? They wouldn't let him pretend he was fine, Ellis said. He doesn't tolerate that. Jessica almost smiled. He'll hate me then, she said. I don't do pretending. Ellis studied her, then nodded, like she'd just checked a box on a list only she could see. She opened the door. The room was large but not cluttered. Bed near the windows. A sitting area. Medical equipment blended as tastefully as money could manage. Curtains half drawn. He sat propped against pillows, the head of the bed elevated. His hair was shorter, his face sharper, the left side of his mouth sloped slightly lower, the way stroke patients' faces often did. His left arm lay heavier, his hand curled a little too tightly. He turned toward the sound of the door. Their eyes met. For one disorienting second, he saw just a caregiver. Then recognition slammed into his face. Jessica, he rasped. She didn't flinch. She didn't smile. I'm your caregiver, she said evenly. I'm here to help with your recovery, Mr. Campbell. Not David. Not yet. You two know each other? Ellis asked, quietly alarmed. We did, Jessica said. You shouldn't be here, he said. You shouldn't have left, she replied. There it was. 12 years of silence punctured in 4 words. And somewhere, quietly, the story asked every woman listening, what would you do if the man who broke you needed you to help put him back together? If you've ever wanted a space where your answer to that question actually matters, use the comments to leave your version of what I'd do. This is one of those stories other women will need to read when they think they're the only ones. Morning light in that house came in through expensive glass, but it was still just light. Jessica stood in front of a mirror that had seen better paint jobs and younger versions of her, tying her hair back into the low bun she wore for work. It was her professional style, neat, controlled, deliberately ordinary. You're just doing your job, she told her reflection. Vitals, meds, mobility, you've done this 100 times. Just never on the man who'd chosen a stock price over a heartbeat. The drive to the estate felt shorter the second day, and heavier. The gates recognized her now. The guards barely glanced up when she gave her name. Ellis met her at the door with that composed concern caregivers learn to read. He didn't sleep much, Ellis said. Refused the sleep aid. He was agitated. I can handle agitated, Jessica said. It's denial I don't do. Upstairs, his room smelled faintly of antiseptic and something more human underneath its sweat. Frustration, the sour edge of someone who'd lost control over basic things. He was already awake, sitting in the armchair by the window, body positioned carefully by someone who understood transfer safety. His cane leaned against the table. His left leg was strapped with a brace. A book lay open, unread, on his lap. He looked smaller out of bed. Not physically, just less invincible. You came back, he said. You're on my schedule, she replied. I show up. That's what I do. For everyone? He asked. Or just the men who've ruined your life? She met his gaze, unflinching. You're not special, she said. Medically. He huffed a humorless laugh. Sit, he said, gesturing weakly toward the second chair. Or stand there and glare at me, whichever meets your job description better. My job description says help you recover, she said. It doesn't say I have to like you. Do you? He asked. It sounded like a joke. It wasn't. She ignored the question. Pain level? She asked. 0 to 10. 4, he said. Pride at an 11. Pride's not my problem, she said. Your blood pressure is. She checked vitals. Professional. Hifisha. Her fingers brushed his skin and remembered things her mind had tried to forget late nights in a cramped apartment, his pulse steady under her hand then, not the uneven drum it was now. You've done this a long time, he said. 12 years, she replied. The math hovered between them. Convenient, he muttered. Or not. You wanted this to be clean, she said. The breakup, the money, the silence. You thought life would file it all away neatly for you. You think you know what I thought? He asked, anger sparking. I know exactly what you thought, she said. You told me. You said a baby will complicate everything. You said I can't afford distractions. Then you wired money and disappeared. His jaw flexed. I was under pressure, he said. You have no idea, no, she cut in. I had every idea. I watched you choose deadlines and deals and headlines over meals and sleep and basic kindness. I didn't expect you to stop wanting those things. I expected you to want us too. He looked away out the window where the garden pretended everything was fine. Why did you take this job? He asked, voice low. You could have refused. You could have walked out of that agency. You could have left me with some stranger I could fire when it got uncomfortable. Jessica thought of Daisy's text about pancakes. The tightness in her daughter's shoulders every time the word dad came up. The way money stretched thinner every month. I took this job, she said, because rent is due. Because school trips cost money. Because washing machines break. Because I'm tired of choosing between toothpaste and bus fare. And because for the first time you don't get to control the terms of how we meet. He flinched. I don't want your pity, he said. You don't have it, she answered. You have my skills and my boundaries. She stepped closer, lifted the gate belt from the back of a chair. We're transferring to the bed, she said. On 3, you use the right side. I'll support the left. No heroics. I can do it myself, he snapped. If you could, you would have, she said. Ready? He glared, then grudgingly, fine. 1, 2. They moved together. His body resisted, then yielded. His hand gripped the cane too tightly. His left leg dragged. His breath hitched, a quiet sound of humiliation. When he was settled on the bed, he stared at the ceiling. I hate this, he said. I know, she answered. Hating it doesn't change it. Working does. You used to say that when I complained about investors, he muttered. You used to listen, she said. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was crowded with missed chances, with unsent apologies, with a life they might have had. He turned his head toward her. Do you have children? He asked too casually. It was the kind of question caregivers get all the time. Small talk, humanizing, a way to pretend they're not terrified. But his eyes were too sharp. He was doing math already. Yes, she said. Something in her voice made his fingers tense. A son? He asked. She shook her head. A daughter. There was a beat. What's her name? He asked. Daisy, she said. He swallowed. How old? He whispered. 12. The number landed like a verdict. His face went slack. His hand tightened around the sheet. She's mine, he said. Not a question. Yes, Jessica replied. She is. If you've ever done that math in your own life, counted years, birthdays, missed calls, and realized exactly when someone chose themselves over you, this is where your breath catches. And if you're still here with Jessica, still listening, it might be your sign to like this story so more women like you find it, because too many of us think we're the only ones doing this kind of math in the dark. His eyes shone with a mixture of horror and impossible hope. Why didn't you tell me? he asked. She laughed once, sharp and without humor. I did, she said. You were too busy to hear it. And for the first time since she'd walked into that room, he didn't have an immediate answer. His mouth opened, then closed. For a man who'd built an empire out of words and numbers, he suddenly had neither. What's she like? He managed. Jessica thought of Daisy's paint-stained fingers. The way she lined her pencils in perfect little rows before homework. The way she pretended she didn't care when other kids talked about their dads and then got too quiet. She's brilliant, Jessica said. She notices everything. She can draw better at 12 than I could at 20. She thinks too much and acts brave when she's scared. He swallowed hard. Does she know about me? He asked. She knows there was a man, Jessica said. She knows he didn't stay. He stared at her, wrecked. I said money, he said weakly. You wired hush money to your own conscience, she replied. Daisy needed a father. She got a routing number. He shut his eyes, pain flickering across his face. I was afraid, he said quietly, of losing everything I'd built, of the board, the press, of being my father. Fear doesn't excuse what you did, Jessica said, but at least you're finally saying what it was. Not timing, not strategy. Cuadadis. He didn't argue. I should have stayed, he whispered. Yes, she said. You should have. And somewhere deep inside, under the layers of anger and exhaustion, a tiny, unwelcome thread pulled taut because, as much as she wanted that sentence 12 years ago, she needed more than words now. If this is hitting a nerve because there's a part of you that wishes someone from your past would finally say I should have stayed, tell your future self you made it this far with your own strength. You can drop a comment with I stayed anyway. If that's your story, it might be exactly what another woman needs to see tonight. The day after he learned Daisy's name, the house felt different, not on the surface. The staff still moved in their quiet choreography. Coffee still brewed at 7. The landscapers still trimmed hedges that didn't need trimming. But under it, something had shifted. The air in David's room was heavier, like the truth had eaten some of the oxygen. He watched Jessica move through the morning routine with a strange sort of awe, like he'd never really seen her work before. You did all this, he said suddenly as she adjusted his brace. For 12 years, for other people, while raising her, alone. Yes, she said simply. No breaks, he asked. Single moms don't get breaks, she replied. We get Tuesday coupons and occasional migraines. He almost smiled at that. Tell me about her, he said. Plaza. Jessica hesitated. You don't get to claim her because genetics finally caught up with your conscience, she said. You miss the hard parts. The beautiful parts. All of it. I know, he said. That's why I'm asking. I'm not asking to change the past. I just want to see whatever pieces you're willing to hand me. He looked smaller when he said it. Not physically. Just less armored. She likes strawberry yogurt, not vanilla, Jessica said finally. She cries at sad commercials and pretends she doesn't. She hates group projects because she ends up doing all the work. She asked me once if you were dead. He flinched. What did you say? He whispered. I told her no, Jessica said. I said you were alive. You just made a different choice. His hand fisted in the blanket. She thought there was something wrong with her, Jessica added, voice tight. Kids always do. They bend themselves into knots to explain adult cowardice. Tears filled his eyes. I don't deserve her, he said. You don't know her, Jessica replied. That's the point. I want to, he said. If there's any way, if you'll let me, I want to meet her. Silence. Heavy, loaded. No, Jessica said. It was immediate. It was absolute. And there it is, he murmured, blinking hard. I don't blame you. This isn't about blame, she said. This is about her. She is not some emotional defibrillator you get to use to restart your heart. If you come into her life now and collapse again emotionally, physically you will carve a wound she'll carry forever. I will not let you do that. What if I don't collapse? He asked. What if I stay? What if this is the moment I finally become the man I was supposed to be 12 years ago? Then prove it, she said, with months, with years, with boring days and hard days, with doctor's appointments and school events and the nights she's mad at you for saying no. But you don't get to audition on her heart until you've built something that can hold her. He nodded, tears spilling over now. I wrote to her, he blurted. Jessica frowned. What letters, he said. To you, to the baby, after you left, after the IPO, late at night when the noise faded and I couldn't pretend I didn't hear the quiet. I wrote everything I didn't say to your face. The apologies, the excuses. I filled notebooks, Jess. Then why didn't I get any? She asked. Because I never sent them, he said, shame washing over him. I told myself I'd send them when I was better, when I was worthy, when I had more to offer than guilt. I kept thinking later, when I've fixed myself, when I've stabilized the company, when the headlines quiet down. And in the meantime, she said, we lived a life without knowing you were out there rehearsing honesty in private. He winced. I know, he said. It's pathetic. I thought the letters meant I cared, that I wasn't totally gone. But caring in theory doesn't feed a baby. It doesn't hold a child when she has a nightmare about being invisible. He ran his good hand over his face. The accident took my body, he said. The stroke took my illusions. Lying here, unable to move, I realized if I died right then, the story people would tell about me would be brilliant businessman, generous philanthropist, and none of them would know the ugliest truth, that I left my child before she took her first breath. He looked at her raw. I don't want to die like that, he whispered. I don't want that to be the last line of my story. Jessica stared at him. For the first time, the weight in his eyes almost matched the weight she'd carried for 12 years. Good, she said quietly. Then don't. Learn to live with the truth instead of dying under it. If you're noticing how different this feels from stories where the guy says one pretty sentence and everything is magically okay, that's on purpose. Healing in real life sounds more like this ugly, halting truth. If you believe more women deserve stories where apologies are earned, not assumed, share this with someone who's tired of watching forgiveness get handed out like candy. It tells platforms this kind of honesty matters. Later that night, when the house had gone quiet and the hallway lights were dimmed, he called out softly, Jessica. She stepped back into his room, hand still on the doorframe. What is it? She asked. I should have stayed, he said again, voice cracking. I know, she replied. Now let's see what you do with the fact that you didn't. And this time he didn't look away. After that night, guilt moved into the room like a fourth presence behind the ivy pole, beside the wheelchair, sitting quietly in the corner whenever they ran out of small talk. His body began betraying him more obviously. It started with the headaches, the way his speech slurred just a bit more at the end of the day, the way his left hand, already unreliable, refused to obey at all one afternoon when he reached for the glass of water on his side table and knocked it clean to the floor. Hold still, Jessica said, the nurse in her instantly alert. I'm fine, he muttered. She was already checking his pupils, his grip strength, the slight asymmetry in his face that had become their uneasy baseline. You were a little better yesterday, she said. This isn't nothing. He tried to sit up straighter, and the effort made him grimace. I did extra reps with the therapist, he said. I overdid it. Or something's changing, she replied. We're not guessing. I'm calling the doctor. He didn't argue this time. That scared her more than the symptoms. The neurologist arrived with a quiet gravity of someone who'd had this conversation too many times. We're not seeing a new major event, he said later, after scans and tests and too much time lying still under two bright lights. But the original damage is asserting itself. We need to be realistic. Some deficits may be permanent. Our goal now is to protect the function you still have. Permanent, David repeated. As in, no miracle comeback montage where I run a marathon in a year? We'll focus on walking safely across a room, the doctor said gently, and staying alive long enough to make that worth the work. It was clinical. It was kind. It was a sentence. That night, the house sank into the kind of quiet that only shows up when everyone's too tired to pretend. Jessica sat in the chair by his bed, chart on her lap, pen in hand, listening to the soft hiss of the oxygen and the occasional creak of settling wood. Are you awake? He asked. I am now, she said. I keep thinking about those letters, he said into the dim light. She didn't move. How many? She asked. Too many, he said. Too few. Depends on how you look at it. He stared at the ceiling. After you left, after the IPO, after the speeches and the champagne, I'd go home and sit at that ridiculous desk in that ridiculous penthouse and write, he said. I'd write to you, to the baby, to this hypothetical person I was pretending I didn't want, because wanting meant changing everything. You wrote, she said slowly, but you never called. Because letters didn't talk back, he said. Letters didn't cry. Letters didn't ask me why I left. Neither did I, she said. I was too busy throwing up and applying for night shifts. He flinched. I told myself I'd send them when I deserved to, he continued. When I'd fixed what was broken in me. When I could show up with something more than a mess and a last name. I pictured standing at your door with a box full of proof that I hadn't forgotten you. That I hadn't forgotten her. You never came, Jessica said. I never came, he echoed. I kept moving the finish line. One more quarter, one more product launch, one more article calling me a visionary. Meanwhile, those letters sat in a safe like they were my penance and my protection all at once. Did you ever think what it was like on our side? She asked quietly. No box, no letters, no evidence you knew we were still alive. Every day, he said. I just let the fear win every time I thought about doing something real. Fear of what? She pressed. Of you slamming the door, he said. Of you telling me she was better off without me. Of walking into a life you had built without me and realizing I had nothing to offer but apologies and money. You're still mostly offering apologies and money, she said. The difference is, now you're also offering time. He turned his head toward her, eyes glinting in the half-light. Time feels shorter now, he said. The doctor talks about realistic expectations, and I hear you wasted the first act of your life. She thought of the years she'd spent stretching grocery money, counting hours left in a shift, counting breaths when Daisy's fevers ran high. Do you know what Daisy did the first time her class made Father's Day cards? Jessica asked. He swallowed. No, he said. She made one for my uncle, Jessica replied, because he picked us up once when the car broke down. She came home and said, It's okay, Mom. I borrowed someone else's dad for school. I know he's not really mine. His face crumpled. I did that, he said. Even when I wasn't there, I did that. Yes, she said. You did. He was quiet for a long moment. I'm not asking you to forgive me, he said at last. I don't know if I believe I deserve that. I need you to know that I know. I see it all now. Every missing chair, every empty line on every form, every question she asked that you had to answer alone. Something in her chest twisted. You're late, she said. You know that, right? Whatever you do now, you are late. I know, he said. I'll spend whatever time I have making late count. She looked at him, at the man who had once stood in front of a room full of shareholders talking about futures and growth and projections, now lying in a bed talking about letters he never sent. Show up, she said. That's the only apology that means anything now. Don't tell me what you'll do for her. Do it. Don't tell me you're different. Be different, day after day, until the person you're describing actually exists. He blinked, tears spilling sideways into his hair. Will you ever let me meet her? He asked. His voice was small, not entitled, not demanding, just hoping. Not yet, Jessica said. Not like this. Not when one bad scan could rip you away again. But if I work, he said, if I listen, if I fight, is there a chance? Maybe, she said. That's the best I can give you, Maiba. For 12 years, he'd taken certainty from her certainty about their future, certainty about what he would be to her and to the child they'd made. Now it was his turn to live with uncertainty, to sit in the uncomfortable space she'd known too well. He nodded, accepting it like a sentence he'd finally stopped appealing. I'll take maybe, he whispered. It's more than I deserve. If you've ever waited for someone to stop asking for forgiveness and start earning it, you know how sacred that maybe is. And if this story is hitting somewhere tender, you're not alone here. This is exactly the kind of moment your comment might echo for another woman who needs to hear. You're allowed to say maybe and mean it. Outside, the house slept on. Inside, a man who used to schedule his worth in quarterly increments was finally learning that real change doesn't come in press releases and headlines. It comes in nights like this. Fate doesn't knock politely. Sometimes it slips through a cracked door while you're signing a permission slip. Jessica found out the hard way. It started with a simple mistake one almost any tired mother could make. She'd forgotten to sign Daisy's new stack of school forms the night before. So between checking David's morning meds and arguing with the insurance portal on hold music, she ducked downstairs to collect a delivery the school had resent. Package for Ms. Owen, the receptionist said, passing her the envelope. On her way back up, her phone buzzed. From Roxy Art Club, ended early dropping Daisy at your work so she can ride home with you. We're already at the gate. Jessica's heart stuttered. She jabbed at the call button, but the elevator doors took their time opening, like they didn't understand urgency. The line crackled. Rox, you can't just, this place has security, you can't relax. Roxy laughed. We're already at the intercom. I'll tell them we're here for you. The call cut out. By the time Jessica reached the front hall, the blue hatchback was already rolling up the drive. Daisy stepped out, backpack slung over one shoulder, eyes huge as she took in the house. "Mom," she breathed. "You work here?" "Yes," Jessica said, forcing her voice steady. "And we are not exploring. We're grabbing my stuff and leaving." Straight line. "No detours, got it," Daisy said. She did not mean it. Ellis appeared with that calm efficiency that meant she'd already read the situation. "She can wait in the staff lounge while you finish," Ellis offered. "We'll be quick," Jessica said. 10 minutos. They took the elevator up. Daisy pressed her palm to the mirrored wall. "Feels like being in a movie," she whispered. "Do you take care of some old prince or something?" "Something," Jessica answered. The doors opened on the second floor. Jessica pointed to the small bathroom off the hall. "Use that if you need to," she said. "And do not wander. I mean it, Daisy." Okay, Daisy said, already eyeing the art on the walls. Before Jessica could say more, a familiar voice called from the far end of the hall. "Jessica Sanders." Perfect timing, as always. He strode toward her, suit sharp, phone in hand. "We need to go over the new care directives," he said. "It won't take long." Jessica glanced back at the bathroom door. 2 minutes, she said. "My daughter is right there. I'm not leaving this floor." They stepped a few yards away, just far enough for Sanders to lower his voice and start talking about long-term prognosis and updated power of attorney. Jessica tried to listen, but her ears were tuned to the faintest sounds from the hall footsteps, doors, anything. A tiny hinge creaked. She turned. The bathroom door was open. Empty. Her stomach dropped. "Daisy?" she called louder than she meant to. No answer. She didn't wait for Sanders. She ran. David's door was ajar. Of course it was. Jessica hit the threshold and stopped so quickly Sanders almost ran into her. Daisy was inside. David sat in his chair by the window, mid-page of a book he clearly wasn't reading. His eyes were wide. They were staring at each other like they'd been dropped into the same mirror. "You look like me," Daisy said calmly. Her chin, his, her eyes, his, the same slope to the nose, the same stubborn line to the mouth when it tightened in thought. David's fingers clenched on the armrest. "And you," he whispered, voice thin, "look like your mother." Jessica's heart hammered in her ears. "Daisy," she said, stepping into the room, "you weren't supposed to. Who is he?" Daisy asked, eyes never leaving David. The room shrank. Time narrowed to a single impossible moment. He started, then stopped. He took a breath that sounded like it scraped his throat. "My name is David." She squinted. "You're that guy from TV," she said slowly. "The billionaire one. Mom turns it off when you come on." David's gaze flicked to Jessica, wounded and hopeful at once. She asked. "Daisy, we need to go," Jessica said. "Now." Her daughter turned, finally looking at her. "Is he my dad?" she asked. 12 years of choices crashed into that question. Jessica could lie. She could say no. Tell Daisy they'd talk later. Drag her out and slam the door on this moment like every other door that had closed on them. But Daisy was 12, not 5. She'd done her own math. She'd earned the truth. "Yes," Jessica said, the word burning on the way out. "Hayes." Silence. "Okay," Daisy said. The lack of drama in her voice hurt more than any scream. David looked like someone had knocked the air out of him. His throat bobbed. "Daisy, She lifted her hand. "Wait," she said. "Before you say anything, I need to know something." He nodded, as if she were a judge and he was the one on trial. "For once the roles fit. Did you leave us on purpose?" she asked. No tremor, no shout, just clean surgical honesty. His eyes closed. When he opened them, there was no room left for spin. "Yes," he said. "I did," David, Jessica snapped. He shook his head. "She deserves the truth," he said. "I left. I chose my work. I chose fear. I told myself I'd come back when things were easier. I didn't. That's on me, no one else." Daisy watched him, expression unreadable. "Do you know my favorite color?" she asked. He blinked. "No," he said. "Do you know what I want to be when I grow up?" she asked. "No," he admitted. "Do you know what I'm scared of?" she asked. He didn't answer. He didn't have to. She nodded. "Okay," she said. "So you're not my dad." "Not really." "You're just the person who didn't come." The line sliced through the air. He flinched like she'd struck him. "You're right," he said hoarsely. "I haven't earned that word. I don't deserve anything from you. Not even this conversation. But I want to, if you'll let me. I want to learn your favorite color and what you want to be. I want to hear every boring story about your day. I can't give you back what I stole. I can only show up now, if you let me be anywhere near you." Her fingers tightened around her backpack strap. "Are you going to die?" she asked softly. Jessica's breath caught. David looked at her, this girl who looked like him and yet belonged entirely to herself, and didn't try to soften it. "Someday," he said, "but not today. Not if I can help it. The doctors say some things might not get better, that I might always need help, but I'm fighting to stay. For me. For you, if you'll let me." She studied him. "So you might not get better," she said. "I might not," he said. "And you left on purpose," she said. "Yes," he replied. "And you're sorry," she said. "More than I know how to say," he whispered. She thought for a long moment. "Okay," she said at last. "Here's the deal. You don't get to call yourself my dad yet. That's not automatic. That's something you earn. Maybe, if I let you. But if you're here now," she swallowed. "If you're really here now, don't leave again." His eyes flooded. "I won't," he said. "Not by choice. Not ever again. People say that," she said. "If you do, I'll hate you. For real. Not just you're annoying. The kind that makes your chest hurt. And I'll never believe you again." "That's fair," he said. "I've earned that risk." Daisy shifted her weight. "I'll think about it," she said. "That's all I can give you right now." It was more than he deserved. It was everything he needed. Ellis, who had appeared in the doorway at some point and stood silently, stepped forward. "Daisy," she said gently, "why don't you come with me? I'll get you some juice while your mom finishes up." Daisy looked at Jessica. "I'll be right there," Jessica said, fighting to keep her voice even. 2 minutes. Daisy nodded. "Bye," she said to David. "Goodbye," he replied. "Or, see you later, if that's okay." She didn't answer that. She just gave him one last measuring look, then left. When she was gone, the room seemed to exhale. "She's incredible," David whispered. "She's everything I never let myself imagine. She's everything I fought for," Jessica said. "With or without you," he nodded. "I know," he said. "I see that now. If you've ever had to watch your child meet the person who hurt you most, you know how charged that air is. If this moment made your own heart ache, you're the kind of woman these stories are for. Go ahead and hit subscribe so you don't miss the rest of Jessica's journey, because the hardest part isn't this meeting. It's what comes after." Standing in that doorway, watching the space where her daughter had just stood, Jessica understood something that terrified and relieved her at the same time. The choice about whether he belonged in their story was no longer hers alone. And that was the one thing she hadn't prepared for. Guilt can sit with you for years. Fear only needs one night. After Daisy's visit, something in David hardened not in the old way, with arrogance and denial, but in a new way, like a man finally bracing himself to do work he'd run from his whole life. He pushed harder in therapy. The first week, the therapist warned him. "The goal isn't punishment," she said. "It's preservation." "I wasted 12 years, he replied. "I don't want to waste one more minute." But bodies don't keep emotional score. They keep their own. When the body says enough, it was a Tuesday. The kind of day nobody remembers until they have to. Morning rehab went longer than usual. Parallel bars. Gait belt snug at his waist. Jessica hovering at his side, hands ready. "Left foot," the therapist coached. "Shift. Right foot. Breathe." David obeyed, jaw clenched, sweat beating at his temple. By step 5, his breath came in ragged pulls. By step 7, his right hand slipped on the bar. "Sit," Jessica ordered. "I can do one more," he insisted. "Sit," she repeated, sharper. He did. Eventually. That afternoon he was quieter. The usual sarcastic comments about hospital TV shows didn't come. He stared out the window at the garden that someone else tended, fingers tugging at the edge of his blanket. "Headache?" Jessica asked. "A little," he said. "How bad?" She pressed. 3, he lied. By evening the house dimmed. Staff went home. The sky outside turned the color of old bruises. Jessica adjusted his pillows, checked his evening meds, watched his face for the micro flinches she'd learned meant pain. "You need to sleep," she said. "Every time I close my eyes, I see all the things I missed," he replied. "Then keep them open," she said. "But don't try to walk. Don't try to be the man you were. Be the one she needs now." He looked at her for a long moment. "If something happens to me," he began. "Don't," she cut in. "We're not doing that speech." He swallowed. "If something happens," he said anyway, "tell Daisy I was trying. Not in my head. Not just in letters. With her. With you can tell her yourself," Jessica said. "Tomorrow." She turned off the overhead light, left the bedside lamp on low, and settled into the chair with her chart. The house hummed around them, the steady background noise of machines and money. She must have dozed. The sound that yanked her back wasn't loud. A strangled gasp. A soft thud of something knocking against wood. "David?" He was slumped to one side, eyes wide but unfocused, right hand clawing weakly at the air. His mouth worked, but the words came out tangled. He choked. Jess' adrenaline snapped through her. "Can you move your right arm?" she asked, already reaching for him. The response was slower, weaker. "Left?" she demanded. Nothing. Her pulse pounded. She hit the call button, then shouted down the hallway, "I need help up here, now!" Ellis appeared in the doorway within seconds, hair down, slippers on. "What happened?" she asked. "Change in status," Jessica said. No weakness. Slurred speech. Could be another stroke. David's fingers groped for something, anything. She gave him her hand. His grip closed around hers with desperate strength. "Don't let me," he forced out. "Die," she finished silently, throat burning. "I'm not going anywhere," she said. "You aren't either. Stay with me." The house phone crackled somewhere behind Ellis as she called emergency services. Jessica's world narrowed to the man in the bed and the terror in his eyes. "Look at me," she said firmly. "Right here." He did, fighting through the fog. "You don't get to check out now," she said. "Not after you've finally shown up. You told her you wouldn't leave again. You don't get to make a liar out of both of us." The paramedics arrived in a blur of uniforms and equipment. Blood pressure cuff, oxygen, rapid questions. Last known normal, baseline weakness left side. On blood thinners, they transferred him to a stretcher. His hand searched blindly for hers again. "I'm coming," she said, climbing into the ambulance beside him. "I've got you." The siren wailed. Inside, time broke into flashes. Lights strobing against the ceiling. Monitor beeping. Paramedic calling out numbers that meant everything and nothing. David turned his head toward her with visible effort. "Jess," he slurred. "I'm here," she said. His eyes shone wild. "If I don't make it, don't," she snapped. "Save your breath." He shook his head weakly. "Love you," he forced out. "Always did. Too broken, too stupid." The words hit her like a second siren one she'd spent 12 years trying not to hear. "You're not dying in the back of an ambulance calling yourself stupid," she said, voice breaking. "If you mean any of that, fight. Fight for a better place to say it." Tears slid sideways from his eyes. "Don't let me leave them like this," he whispered. "The doctor will decide what your brain does," she said. "You decide whether you show up if you get another chance. If this scene has your chest tight because you know what it is to almost lose someone right when they finally show up, you're not alone in that feeling. And if you're still listening, hit like so these long, messy stories don't get drowned out by the short, shiny ones. This is the kind of ending women over 60 often never get to see. Limbo, ICU, the ER swallowed them. Bright lights. Cold air. Hurry without panic. Possible recurrent stroke, someone said. Get him to imaging. They wheeled him away, doors swinging shut between them. For the first time since she'd known him, Jessica couldn't follow. She sat at a plastic chair in the hallway, hands still tingling with the ghost of his grip. Ellis arrived, face pale. Sanders came later, tie loosened. "Status?" he asked. "They're scanning," Jessica said. "They said if we'd waited, it could have been worse." The neurologist met them in a small consultation room with walls the color of resignation. "He's alive," the doctor said. "We intervened quickly. It was another clot. We were able to break it down." Jessica exhaled a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. "But?" she asked. "But the damage adds up," he continued. "Each event raises the ceiling for recovery. We're now less focused on full function and more on maintaining the independence he has. He's at higher risk from here on out." "Plain language," Jessica said. "What does that look like?" "He may never walk unaided," the doctor said. "He may always need assistance. His brain is telling us it won't be bullied into miracles. He'll need to accept that." The word accept landed harder than any medical term. "Can I see him?" she asked. "Soon," the doctor said. "He's sedated, but he'll start waking up. He'll be groggy, confused. He'll need familiar faces." In the ICU room, he looked smaller. Machines hummed. Lines snaked from his arm and chest. His left side lay heavier, his right hand resting limp on the blanket. Jessica moved to the bed, fingers brushing his. "Hey," she said softly. "It's me." His eyelids fluttered, then lifted. His gaze was foggy, but he found her. "Jess," he croaked. "Yeah," she said. "You scared me." He tried to smile. It came out crooked. "Scared. Me too," he whispered. "Good," she said. "Next time, listen when your body says enough before it starts shouting." He let out a shaky exhale. "Did I lose?" "More," he asked. "A little," she said. "But you're still here. That's what matters right now." His eyes filled. "I thought that was it," he said. "In the house. I thought, this is how I go. In a bed. Half a man, no more chances. You're not done, she said. Apparently we're stuck with you a little longer. He managed a weak chuckle. I meant it, he said suddenly, voice rasping. In the ambulance. I love her. I waited too long to say it. I didn't want to die with it still inside. Tears burned the backs of her eyes. You chose work over us, she said. Those words don't erase that. I know, he replied. They're not a magic trick. They're just true for once. He looked at her with that same terrified honesty she'd seen when he grabbed her hand and begged her not to let him go. I don't want to waste what's left, he said. Not on stocks, articles, strangers clapping. I want the boring stuff, the noisy stuff. Her rolling her eyes at me. You telling me I'm being an idiot. You'll get plenty of that, she said. Do you? Still, he trailed off, searching. Is there anything left for me? In you? The question burrowed under her ribs. She thought of the girl she'd been at 24, sitting on a cheap couch, laughing at his terrible late-night coding jokes. The woman she'd become at 36, juggling shifts and school projects, and a daughter who carried questions in her eyes. There's anger, she said. There's hurt. There's a ledger in my head with every time I needed you and you weren't there. But under that, there's something that never completely died. I hate that it's still there, but it is. He inhaled, the sound catching. I'll spend whatever I've got left, he said, trying to be someone that doesn't make you hate having that feeling. You're going to spend what you've got left being a father to Daisy first, she said. Then we can talk about anything else. He nodded, eyes drooping. Stay? He asked, voice thready. She tightened her fingers around his. I'm here, she said. I'm not going anywhere. As he drifted back into medicated sleep, machines keeping quiet watch, Jessica sat in the half-dark ICU room and realized something. He had almost died without ever really being the man he could have been. He'd been given one more chance. But survival, she knew too well, wasn't the same as change. Whether this night would finally turn his promises into something real, that was still an open question. And if you've ever sat in that ICU chair, wondering if someone's I'll change will actually survive discharge, you know that question can haunt you. If this is speaking to a chapter of your own life, share it with one woman who would understand, because sometimes just knowing someone else has sat in that chair is its own kind of medicine. Redemption did not arrive with the ICU discharge papers. It arrived in the small, unglamorous work that came after. The doctors were blunt when they sent him home. No more pushing past fatigue, the neurologist said. No more just one more step to prove a point. Your brain has limits now. Respect them, or we'll be having a very different conversation. On the drive back to the estate, the city moved past the car windows like nothing had happened. People walked dogs. Teenagers crossed streets with earbuds in. A man balanced 3 grocery bags on one arm while fishing for keys with the other. Inside, Jessica felt the thinness of the line they'd walked. You scared her, she said quietly. Daisy? He asked. Yes, she said. I told her you were in the hospital before she saw it on a screen. She went quiet. Too quiet. I've seen that look before. He stared out the window. What did she say? He asked. She said, is he going to leave again? Jessica replied. She didn't say die. She said leave. That's how her mind works. That's what she's expecting from you. He shut his eyes. I don't blame her, he said, but I'm not leaving. Not if any part of that choice belongs to me. We'll see, Jessica said, day by day. If you've ever had to watch someone promise they'll change and known the only real proof is in the boring days that follow, you understand why she answered that way. If you want to keep walking through those days with her, hit subscribe so you don't lose this thread. Sometimes the quiet chapters are the ones that finally heal something in you. Rehab after the second stroke was slower, meaner, more honest. The therapist didn't talk about getting back to normal anymore. She talked about protecting what we have. We're not climbing now, she said, strapping the brace more securely around his leg. We're weatherproofing. I used to measure success in millions, David muttered. Now it's in millimeters. Welcome to real life, Jessica said. Most of us have been here for a while. He gripped the parallel bars, knuckles whitening. One step, the therapist said. We're not chasing distance. We're chasing control. He lifted his foot. It dragged. He corrected. Sweat broke out along his hairline. Again, she said. He did it. By the third step, he was breathing hard. By the fifth, a tremor ran through his arm. "Enough for today," she said. Again, he insisted. Jessica stepped closer. "You heard her," she said. "We're not landing you in the ICU again so you can feel like a hero for 5 minutes." He looked at her, frustration burning hot. "I hate this," he said. "I know," she answered. "Do it anyway, and stop before your body screams." He obeyed not because he didn't want to argue, but because, finally, he understood that living for Daisy meant listening to people who told him no. The first public humiliation, and why it mattered, the first time he went back into the world after ICU, it wasn't to a boardroom. It was to a grocery store. "You don't have to come," Jessica told him. "I can pick things up after my shift." "I want to see how people look at me now," he said. "Might as well start where the rest of the world runs errands." The wheelchair felt bigger under fluorescent lights. The aisles felt narrower. People stared. Some looked away quickly, embarrassed at being caught. Others stared longer, the way people do when they're trying to place a familiar face. "Is that?" someone whispered near the cereal. "Looks like him," another voice replied. "The tech guy. Had the stroke, right?" A teenager lifted his phone, hesitated, then lowered it when Jessica's eyes met his. Daisy pushed the chair, determined. "Left," she said. "We're getting real syrup, not the fancy stuff. You won't taste the difference." "Spoken like someone who's never paid a grocery bill," Jessica muttered. "Spoken like someone with standards," Daisy shot back. They stopped near the bread. A man about David's age blocked the aisle, not noticing at first. When he finally did, he glanced down, did a double take, then stepped back clumsily. "Sorry," he mumbled. "Didn't see you." "There, it's okay," David said. "I'm hard to miss these days." Jessica waited for the edge she remembered from his old life, a quip sharp enough to cut, the defensive joke that would reestablish his superiority. It didn't come. Instead, he just said thanks and let Daisy steer him around. Later, as they loaded bags into the trunk, Daisy looked at him sideways. "You didn't get mad," she said. "At that guy. He didn't do anything wrong," David replied. "He just had his own problems. We were a surprise in the aisle. That's all." "You used to get mad," she said. "How would you know?" he asked gently. "You didn't know me then." She shrugged. "I've seen old interviews," she said. "You looked like you were ready to bite people." He huffed a laugh. "I was," he admitted. "It didn't make me happier, just louder." "Louder isn't better," she said. "My art teacher says the quiet colors make the painting work." He looked at her like she'd handed him a new operating system. "Then we'll practice quiet," he said. Daisy, slowly turning toward him, she didn't forgive him in one speech. She forgave him in micro-choices. She started texting him questions she used to save for Jessica. "What does compound interest mean? Did you ever fail a test? Is it bad if I don't know what I want to be yet?" He answered slowly, clumsily, sometimes dictating to his phone because his hand wouldn't cooperate. "Compound interest. Money that grows because it's already grown. Like apologies that turn into actions over time." "Yes, I failed things. I just didn't let anyone write that part in the company newsletter." "No, it's not bad. It's honest. I was 35 before I realized I didn't know how to be a decent man, and I'm still figuring it out." She sent back emojis she pretended were jokes, but chose carefully. One afternoon, after a particularly rough rehab session, she flopped onto the couch beside his chair and sighed dramatically. "I bombed my presentation," she said. "What happened?" he asked. My voice shook, she said. "I forgot a line. Everybody was looking at me. I wanted to disappear." "I used to feel that way before big talks," he said. She snorted. "Yo, right," she said. "I did," he insisted. "Difference was, I got very good at pretending I didn't. I thought confidence meant never letting anyone see you sweat. Turns out, real confidence is sweating in public and not apologizing for existing." She stared at him. "That's actually helpful," she said. "Don't get used to me saying that." Jessica, listening from the doorway, felt something loosen in her chest she didn't know she'd been holding so tight. Trust, for her, didn't come from speeches either. It came from watching him be useful to their daughter in ways money never could buy. If you've been waiting your whole life for a man to show up for a child with more than gifts and big talk, you know how precious a tiny moment like that is. Drop a "she deserves this" in the comments if you've ever watched a girl finally get something she should have always had. It might remind someone else that it's not wrong to want better for the next generation. Jessica's guard starts to shift for months. Jessica kept a quiet ledger in her head. Showed up to PT, check. Didn't snap at staff when frustrated, check. Listened when Daisy said, "I don't want to talk about it," check. Didn't miss a call, didn't minimize their pain, didn't ask for a clean slate. The ledger didn't erase anything. But slowly, stubbornly, another column formed beside it, not to cancel the debt, but to record something else. Effort, consistency, change. One evening, as she helped him settle into bed, he watched her with that careful gaze she'd learned to recognize as thought, not performance. "You look tired," he said. "Occupational hazard," she replied. "No," he said. "This is more than that." "I'm fine," she said. "We're not turning this into a reverse therapy session." He was quiet for a beat. "I used to think you were asking too much of me," he said. "Back 10, when you said you wanted me and the baby and a life that wasn't just an office. Now I see you were asking for the bare minimum." "You're late to that realization," she said. "I know," he replied, "but I'm grateful you're giving me more time to try." She didn't say, "I'm giving Daisy more time with you." She didn't have to. She knew it. He knew it. And in a way she hated admitting, a small part of that time was for her too. One night, alone in her small kitchen, staring at the chipped mug she always reached for when she was too tired to think, a question slipped into her mind uninvited. What if this is finally safe to want? She didn't answer it out loud. But she didn't push it away as quickly as she used to. A quiet conclusion, weeks rolled into months. He kept doing the work. He kept staying. One afternoon, Jessica stood in the hallway outside the sunroom watching through the glass. Daisy sat cross-legged on the floor, sketchbook open. David sat in his chair, leaning forward, pencil in hand, tongue caught between his teeth in concentration as he tried to copy a simple shape she'd drawn. "Lighter," she said. "You're pressing too hard. You don't have to attack the paper." "Old habits," he replied. "I used to attack everything." "Try again," she said. He did. The line wobbled. He didn't curse. He just tried again. Jessica realized, with a surprising mix of fear and relief, that the thought she'd been avoiding for months had quietly turned into a conviction. He's not leaving. Not because his body couldn't. Because finally he wouldn't. If you've stuck with Jessica this far, you already know this isn't a fairy tale. But it is something rarer. A story where a woman doesn't have to be punished for believing in change. If that matters to you, make sure you're subscribed, because the way this story closes might just give you a different kind of ending than the ones you were handed in your own life. When a man like David steps back from the world, everyone expects a press conference. Instead, what they got was a calendar that started revolving around a 12-year-old girl. It began with small changes. No meetings at 3:30 on Tuesdays, he told his assistant over video one morning. "That's non-negotiable." "What happens at 3:30? She asked. "Art club lets out," he said. "I do a call with my daughter." The word daughter still sounded new in his mouth, but he didn't flinch when he said it now. He blocked Fridays for school things. Parent-teacher conferences. Little award ceremonies that never made the news but meant everything to the kids in folding chairs. "You know you don't have to come to all of these," Jessica said once, as she adjusted his jacket before another trip to the middle school gym. "I didn't have to miss the first 12 years either," he replied. "But I did." That shut her up, in the right way. Inside the house, staff noticed. "He asks about her schedule now," Ellis remarked one evening. Before, he only ever asked about flights and board meetings. "He's learning where the real appointments are," Jessica said. "Better late than never," Ellis replied, though earlier would have been kinder. The boardroom goodbye the formal step back came quietly. He joined the board meeting by video, wheelchair visible, not hidden out of frame. His voice was rougher than it used to be, but steady. "I'm not dying," he told them. "Let's start there. But I am done pretending I can run this place and a life worth having at the same time." There were protests, of course. "You're the face of the company," one director said. "You are the company," another added. "No," he said. "I was the company. That's the problem. I built something that can stand without me. It's time to prove it." When they asked what he would do next, he surprised them. "Live," he said. "Badly at first, I'm sure. But on purpose. With my daughter. With the woman who kept her alive while I was busy chasing numbers." He knew they didn't understand. He also knew, for once, that their understanding was not the point. If you've ever watched a man finally demote his ego and promote his family, you know how huge that shift is. If it made you think, "I wish someone I loved had done that sooner," say it in the comments in your own words. Sometimes putting it out there is the first step toward not repeating the pattern with the next generation. Boundaries, carefully redrawn with the company no longer owning his time, the shape of their days changed. Jessica started staying for dinner more often. At first, it was logistics. Traffic's awful, Ellis would say. Stay, eat, no point going home hungry and exhausted. Then it became something else. Daisy would insist she needed both adults to judge her new drawings. Mom will like it no matter what, she'd say. I need his mean opinion, too. Constructive, David would protest. Not mean. We'll see, she'd reply, smirking. One evening, after Daisy had gone to bed in the guest room, they now just called her room. Jessica and David sat in the kitchen finishing tea. You know I'm still your employee, technically, Jessica said, tracing the rim of her mug. Technically, he agreed. In reality, you're the reason I'm alive, the reason she's not broken beyond repair, and the reason I get to try again. No contract covers that. That doesn't mean I'm yours, she said. He met her eyes. I know, he replied. You choose where you stay. I'm just hoping this is one of the places. The old David would have turned that into a pitch, a promise, a rush. This one let the moment breathe. Let her answer by showing up the next day, and the next. Intimacy, 1 inch at a time, romantic reconnection did not arrive in candlelight and speeches. It crept in sideways. The evening he reached for her hand and then stopped halfway. May I? He asked. She looked at his open palm, at the faint tremor in his fingers. Why? She asked. Because I want to feel your hand in mine without a crisis attached to it, he said. But your boundaries matter more than what I want. So I'm asking. 12 years earlier, he hadn't asked about much. Now, the question itself felt like growth. She placed her hand in his. His fingers wrapped around hers carefully, like he was holding something breakable and understood he was just as fragile. They sat like that, not as nurse and patient, not as unfinished disaster and unfinished forgiveness, but as two people finally admitting the string between them hadn't snapped, even if it had frayed. Sometimes I'm scared I only want you back because you're trying now, she said quietly. Like I'm rewarding the bare minimum. He shook his head. You want what you deserved all along, he said. It's not your fault I'm late learning how to give it. Choosing them in public the first time he chose them in front of the world, there were cameras. A local news station came to film a segment about his foundation's new scholarship program. They set up in the sunroom for a softer, more human feel. Just talk about opportunity, the reporter said. And resilience. People love resilience. He could have done that in his sleep. Instead, halfway through an answer about access and innovation, his gaze slid toward the doorway. Daisy leaned there, pretending to scroll her phone, listening to every word. Jessica stood just behind her, arms crossed, not hiding but not stepping in. The reporter followed his line of sight. Is that your family? She asked. He could have said no. Could have deflected. Could have kept them separate, safe from scrutiny. Yes, he said. This is my daughter, Daisy. And Jessica, her mother. My partner in the only work that really matters now. He motioned them in. Jessica hesitated. Daisy didn't. You're on TV, Daisy whispered as she slid into frame. Try not to embarrass me. I'll do my best, he said, but no promises. The reporter smiled. Would you like to say anything? She asked Jessica. Jessica almost said no. Then she thought of all the women who'd raised children alone while men like him were praised for their philanthropy. I'd like to say this, she replied. Taking care of strangers is my job. Taking care of this family is my choice. He's done a lot of good in the world, but what matters to me is what he does here, where no cameras were supposed to be. The crew went quiet. Later, when the segment aired, people saw more than a headline about a billionaire's recovery. They saw a man in a chair, a girl who looked like him, and a woman who didn't flinch from the truth. For once, he hadn't written them out of the story. If you've ever watched a man hide his family to protect his image, you know why that matters. If seeing him finally bring them into the light hit something in you, share this with someone who needed to see a different ending, because these small public choices add up, especially for the girls watching. Letting hope back in that night after the cameras were gone and the house had settled, Jessica stood at her own kitchen sink rinsing dishes. Her phone buzzed. From David. Thank you for standing next to me today. I know I haven't earned ease yet, but I'm grateful for every hard thing you're willing to do with me instead of just for me. She stared at the words. There had been a time when any message from him felt like a threat to her hard-won balance. Now it felt like possibility. From Jessica, hard things are easier when everyone's shoulders are under them. Don't make me regret betting on you again. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Came back. From David, I won't. Not this time. Not if I have anything to say about it. She set the phone down, heart thudding in that uncomfortable, hopeful way she remembered from a younger version of herself. The difference was, this time she wasn't alone with it. Somewhere across town, a man who had once called her baby a complication was going to bed knowing that tomorrow his most important appointment was a girls' after-school call. And for the first time in a very long time, when Jessica pictured the future, she didn't only see herself and Daisy in it. She saw him too, not at the center, but there, and she let herself want that. The headline about him stepping down ran under the business section, not the front page. Campbell transitions to founder emeritus role, it read. Most people skimmed it between weather and sports. In a small kitchen on the other side of town, Jessica read every word, then looked up at Daisy. "It's official," she said. "He's not running the company anymore." Daisy chewed her toast thoughtfully. "Does that mean more time?" she asked. "For what?" Jessica said, even though she knew. "For this," Daisy replied. "For us. For him not dying at his desk." Jessica thought of the ICU room, the ambulance, the way he'd gripped her hand and begged for more time, not for deals, but for apologies. "I think," she said slowly, "that's exactly what it means." A different kind of legacy, they celebrated the change in the most ordinary way possible, at her school. The auditorium smelled like old wood and new paint, folding chairs. A banner that said Spring Showcase hung slightly crooked at the back of the stage. Parents shuffled in, clutching programs. Children whispered, waved, adjusted collars. Jessica stood along the side aisle. David sat beside her in his chair, dressed in a simple button-down Daisy had helped him pick. "You nervous?" she asked. "Yes," he said, "and I like it." He watched the crowd with new eyes. "This used to be background," he murmured. "The lives behind my users, my customers, the ones I never saw. Now, this is the whole point." The lights dimmed. The principal launched into a speech about creativity and community. Jessica half listened, eyes on the row where Daisy sat, second from the aisle, program folded and refolded in restless fingers. And for outstanding contribution in visual arts, the principal finally said, "For work that shows not just talent, but real heart, our award goes to Daisy Owen." The applause blurred at the edges. Daisy's head jerked up, her cheeks flushed. She glanced back, instinctively searching for Jessica and, this time, for him. They were both already clapping. He was on his feet as much as he could be, pushing up from the armrest just enough to stand awkwardly, proudly, beside his chair. She walked across the stage, accepted the certificate with a small, disbelieving smile. When she came off the steps, she didn't go straight back to her row. She came to them. "You saw?" she asked, breathless. "We did," Jessica said. "We always will," David added. The principal approached, offering his hand. "Congratulations," he said. "Your parents must be very proud." The word parents hung in the air. For years, Jessica had corrected it automatically. "Just me," she'd say, as light as possible, like it didn't sting. This time, before she could speak, Daisy did. "They are," she said, glancing between them. "My mom and my dad are both really proud." "Dad!" The word landed without fanfare, without a catch. David went very still. "Yes," he said softly. "We are." When the principal moved on, Jessica turned to Daisy. "You sure?" she asked quietly. "Yeah," Daisy said. "He's passed enough tests." She shot him a look. "Don't make me regret the promotion," she added. "I won't," he said. "Not if I can help it." For once, everyone believed him. Forgiveness named out loud later that week. The three of them sat around the kitchen table in the house they now all called home, a smaller place than his old estate, with scuffed baseboards and a backyard big enough for a crooked garden. Daisy had retreated to her room, claiming very important art business. The door was cracked just enough for her to listen if she wanted. Jessica wrapped her hands around her mug, the steam softening the air between them. "There's something I need to say," she began. David set his tea down, immediately alert. "If this is where you tell me you've reconsidered and I'm on probation again, I'll—" "Accept it," he said. "Badly, but I'll accept it." "It's not that," she said. Itch took a breath. "For a long time I promised myself I would never forgive you," she said. "Not out of spite. Out of protection. Forgiving you felt like erasing what you did. And I refuse to pretend those 12 years didn't happen. I don't want you to," he said quickly. "If you did, I'd feel erased too. Like none of this cost anything." "I remember all of it," she said. "The night you chose your IPO over our baby. The forms with father. The empty chairs. The questions. I remember carrying all of that alone." He nodded, eyes already glossy. "But now," she continued, "I also remember you in that ambulance. In that ICU room. In those bleachers. At the kitchen sink, washing dishes one plate at a time because your hand shakes and you refuse to let that stop you helping. I remember you choosing to be here on the worst days, not just the easy ones. She swallowed. So here's the truth, she said. I forgive you, not because you deserve a blank slate, not because I forgot, but because you've shown me over and over that you are not the same man who left. And I'm tired of letting who you were keep me from loving who you are now. His breath hitched. Jessica, he whispered. This doesn't wipe the ledger, she added. It just means I'm done charging interest. A laugh sob escaped him, raw and unpolished. You're better with metaphors than my lawyers, he said. I'm better with life than they are, she replied. If you've ever wrestled with the idea that forgiving someone means excusing them, you know how big this moment is. Forgiveness with memory is different. If that distinction means something to you, you can say so in the comments in your own way. It might give another woman language she's been searching for. He reached across the table, hand shaking slightly. Can he asked. She slid her hand into his. You already are, she said. A new everyday, the new normal wasn't perfect, but it was theirs. Mornings look like this, Jessica making coffee, Daisy sleepily pouring cereal, headphones around her neck, David wrestling with the toaster, insisting he could manage it one-handed. I survived 2 strokes, he said once, frowning at a stubborn slice of bread. I can survive breakfast. Don't burn the house down, Jessica warned. If he does, I'm moving in with Roxy, Daisy added. Afternoons sometimes meant hospital follow-ups and PT appointments. Sometimes they meant grocery runs and art supply errands. Sometimes they meant nothing special at all 3 people in the same room, doing separate things, the simple luxury of presence. There were arguments about curfew, about Daisy's phone, about how far he could push himself before she and Jessica overruled him. There were also small, unexpected joys. The way Daisy absently rested her hand on the back of his chair when they waited in lines. The way he timed his medications so he'd be as alert as possible for her school events. The way Jessica would catch him watching them both like he still couldn't quite believe he'd been allowed back into the picture not as a guest, but as part of the frame. Coming full circle one evening, near the end of a long day, the 3 of them sat on the couch. An old movie played on the TV one Jessica had grown up with, full of 80s hair and improbable happy endings. Daisy lay sprawled across the cushions, head in Jessica's lap, feet resting gently near David's leg brace. His hand, the stronger one, absently traced small circles on the back of her calf, the way parents do without realizing they're soothing 2 people at once. Do you remember, Jessica said quietly, the first time I saw your name again? He nodded. On a file, he said, in an office that smelled like burnt coffee. I thought it was a cruel joke, she said, like the universe was bored. The universe is cruel, he replied, but this feels merciful. He glanced at her. If you could go back, he asked, to that office, would you still take the job? She thought about it. I'd walk in with more armor, she said. But yes, because it led here. And I wouldn't trade this version of us for a prettier one that never learned anything. Daisy shifted, half awake. You 2 getting mushy? She mumbled. A little, Jessica said. Good, Daisy replied. You earned it. She drifted back toward sleep. Jessica looked at David. Do you still think redemption is a moment? She asked. He shook his head. No, he said. It's tonight, and tomorrow, and the day after. It's the next time she slams her door and I knock and wait instead of walking away. It's doing the dishes when my hand hurts. It's showing up even when no one would blame me for staying in bed. And staying? She pressed. Staying, he said, is the only thing I know for sure I can do now. Even if it's in this chair. Even if it's messy. I'm here. That's finally enough for me. He looked down at their daughter, then back at Jessica. For the record, he added, voice thick, I love you, both of you, not in theory, not in letters I never send, in this room, in this life, in whatever time I have left. She smiled. Tired. Real, we know, she said. And this time you didn't wait until the back of an ambulance to say it. Outside, the world kept spinning emails sent, deals made, headlines written about other people's empires. Inside, in a soft pool of lamplight on a worn couch, a woman who had been left stayed. A man who had once run stayed. A girl who had once wondered if she was unlovable stretched in her sleep, utterly certain there would be someone there when she woke up. It wasn't a fairy tale. It was better. It was a future they all chose, one ordinary day at a time.